So how many people are you expecting, Zakir?
Sir, 6 participants are there, sir, right now. So they will be joining, sir. The total number of registrations came is 104, sir. 104. And apart from that, many of sir, around the yes, sir. 1 second, sir. Sorry, sir, that was YouTube live. So 104 registrations are there, sir. So out of that one, I'm expecting at least 80 participants to join. So
everybody online, or some people are present there also?
Sir, on YouTube, our students are watching, sir.
Okay.
Many of our second year and third year students are watching via YouTube. They are not allowed to come into Zoom. Only
so there are no students on campus right now.
On campus students are there, sir, but they are watching in classrooms.
Oh, okay.
Their respective classrooms, they are watching. So but in Zoom, only registered and PG and faculties are watching, sir.
So you are running classes in an offline mode, is it?
Yes, sir. Offline. Yes, sir.
Oh, I see. How many students altogether in the academy?
In the academy, 5,000, sir.
Okay. And it's a residential campus?
No, sir, not residential. It's a mixed, sir. So hostel we have, not completely. Okay. Day scholars are more, sir.
And how old is the academy? I mean, how old is chemical engineering?
Sir, 1978, first chemical engineering course has been started, sir. Chemical technology.
Okay.
It is a mix of chemistry plus chemical technology, sir. It's a unique course. Nowhere we can find out this type of courses. They are studying 5 different types of chemistries. In all 3 years, they are studying chemistry plus a little bit of chemical engineering topics. Sir.
Okay.
It was started as associate degree in chemical technology, sir, from Osmania University. Then now the BSc degree in chemical technology.
So it is now an independent, it like has a university status, or is still part of Osmania?
No, sir, it's autonomous college right now. But our management is planning to convert it as a university, deemed university.
Okay, so right now then it's also under the umbrella of Osmania University, is it?
Yes, sir, Osmania University. Only the autonomous status is there. That's
okay. And how long have you been there?
2 years, sir. After PhD, I joined here.
So who is the director now in RGIPT Bareilly?
RGIPT, I think ASK Sinha, sir.
Oh, from Banaras?
He's from BHU, Banaras University. Yes, sir.
And when did Dr. Bhattacharya finish his term?
Sir, around December 2018, I guess, sir. December 2018, I finished. After 1 or 2 months, he maybe completed his tenure.
So even the new director has been there for almost 3 years now.
Yes, sir. Yeah, 2 years, 2.5 years. Yeah. Sir, we will be starting in next 3 minutes, sir.
That's fine. I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Do you want me to keep my video on or can we switch it off?
As per your wish, sir.
No, I mean, if there is a bandwidth problem, then we can switch it off after the introduction.
If it is the case, I will tell you, sir. No problem.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
How is the COVID situation in Telangana?
Present situation. Okay. You mean to ask about COVID, sir, or?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. COVID. Not exactly. Nobody is feeling like this is a pandemic situation. Everybody is roaming around, sir.
So no, but everybody has been vaccinated or no?
I hope so, sir. Around 80% has been vaccinated.
Okay, that's okay then. That's good.
Yes, sir. So colleges, everything is open, sir, including schools, everything.
Okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. I am PVR Prasad, IQSC coordinator, working at Loyola Academy, Department of Chemical Engineering from 1994. I welcome you in our admit, sir. I also welcome all the participants to this workshop on nature of research and skills required, critical thinking and ethics by Professor R.P. Chabra, mentor IIT Ropar and retired professor IIT Kanpur. This workshop is organized by Internal Quality Assurance Cell and Department of Chemical Technology of Loyola Academy, Secunderabad, Telangana, India, in collaboration with Telangana Academy for Skills and Knowledge, Government of Telangana, and ProSam Biosciences Private Limited, Hyderabad. Before we start the workshop, let's invoke God's blessings by a prayer song.
You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
I, the Lord of sea and sky, I have heard my people cry, all who dwell in dark and sin. My hand will save. I who made the stars of night, I will bring the darkness bright. Who will bring my light to them? Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Did I, Lord, heard you calling in the night? I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart. I, the Lord of snow and rain,
I have borne my people's pain. I have wept for love of them. They turn away. I will break their hearts of stone. Give them hearts for love alone. I will speak my word to them. Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord. If you lead me, I will hold your people in my heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir, and good afternoon, my dear respected participants. Today we have gathered here to listen from an eminent speaker who will be enlightening us on the topic nature of research and skills required, critical thinking and ethics. As a preamble, I would like to share some information which was published by Departments of Science and Technology. Yes, this is the statistics published by DST year-wise for national expenditure on research and development by sector-wise. This tabular column shows higher education also, and then we are seeing that the amount which is given is increasing tremendously. 2005-6, it is 1254.01 crores. 18-19 up to that I could get that statistics. It is 8797.08 crores. Interestingly, if you take the data from another concept, that is National Science Board USA, where they have taken a survey, they published a data on the quality papers published by country-wise. Suppose if you take year 2016, United States 409,000, and similarly if you come down it is 110 for India. So this many papers were published year-wise. So if you take 2008 it is 49. Now 2016 if you take 110,000. Good thing. But one more data they also published, that is the index. If you see 2014, ours is only 0.61. United States is 1.9. Where is the gap? And this gap has to be filled. And I hope today's workshop will enlighten us in all the fields. When you see the research and skills, I would like to remind you a small story. under research, in 1926, when Albert Einstein was taking a class, suddenly a student stands up and says, "Sir, this is wrong." And then he says, "PQ is not equal to QP." I hope what will happen to the fate of the boy. And then in the year 1932, he was awarded Nobel Prize. Yes, I am referring to Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Similarly, when we take about the skills, I have another interesting story. This man by name Ansel Benjamin Keys, an American physiologist, he was given huge amount of money to correlate fat and heart diseases. And we all know very well, when funding is done, we have to give positive reports only. Then after certain time, I'm talking about skills, after certain time, we have another man from England by name John Yudkin. He has replaced the data which Ansel Keys has published. He has removed the fat and then used the word sugar. And both were recognized. So research is searching continuously on what has happened, what is going to happen, but we should have the will. Now, I request to play the video of our college before we start the program. Thank you very much.
Welcome to Loyola Academy. Our mission here is to form men and women for others and mold our students as global citizens with competence, conscious, and compassionate commitment. Special concern is shown towards the socially and economically underprivileged students. Our vision here is to impart higher education with integral formation which involves academic excellence, spiritual growth, social commitment, and value based leadership. Here are a few glimpses of our 132-acre huge campus. History of Loyola Academy. Loyola Academy was founded by Reverend Father T.J. Balaya S.J. in the year 1976 with intermediate courses also offering an associate degree in chemical technology. It then developed into a degree in 1978 and a PG in 1993. Loyola Academy is situated in Old Alwal, Secunderabad in the state of Telangana, India. Loyola Academy is managed and administered by the Loyola Academy Society Alwal, Secunderabad, belonging to the members of the Society of Jesus. The Society of Jesus is an international Catholic religious organization of men founded in 1540 by Saint Ignatius of Loyola. These religious men, popularly known as Jesuits, are about 17,000 spread all over the world. It all began with Saint Ignatius of Loyola. Inigo Lopez de Loyola was born in Basque Country, Spain in the year 1491. The youngest of 13 children, Inigo Lopez was brought up by the local blacksmith's wife after his own mother died soon after his birth. Under the Duke's leadership, he participated in many battles without injury. But when a French army stormed Pamplona's fort on May 20th, 1521, a cannonball wounded one of his legs and broke the other. During his days of recovery, he asked for books on chivalry. Instead, he was given the books in the house, The Life of Christ and a collection of Life of the Saints. Inigo set about reading them. As he continued to read these books, he continued to reflect. He asked himself, if Saint Francis could do this, why not I? If Saint Dominic could do this, why not I? The more he reflected, the more did God become the center of his life. 5 elements of Ignatian pedagogy. First one, context. Education never occurs in a vacuum. Educators must know as much as possible about the actual context without teaching and learning taking place. Teachers need to understand the world of the learner. Experience. Teachers must create the conditions whereby learners gather and recollect the material of their own experience in order to distill what they understand already in terms of facts, feelings, values, insights, and intuitions they bring to the subject matter at hand. The third one, reflection. Teachers lay the foundations of learning how to learn by engaging students in skills and techniques of reflection. Here, memory, understanding, imagination, and feelings are used to grasp the essential meaning and value of what is being studied. The fourth one, action. Teachers provide opportunities that will challenge the imagination and exercise the will of the learners to choose the best possible course of action from what they have learned. The fifth, evaluation. Daily quizzes, weekly or monthly tests, and semester examinations are familiar instruments to assess the degree of mastery of knowledge and skills achieved. Governance at Loyola Academy is about ensuring that the values the college aspires to are part of everyday life on campus. Our rector, Reverend Father C.H. Amar Rao S.J., looks after the overall management. Our correspondent, Reverend Father Emmanuel S.J., is the liaison between Loyola and the world. Our principal, Reverend Father Joji Reddy S.J., manages the overall academic affairs. The Vice Principal of PG, Reverend Father C.H. Anand Kumar S.J., manages the academic affairs of all the PG courses. The Vice Principal of UG, Reverend Father Anil Kumar S.J., manages the academic affairs of all the UG courses.
Now I request Dr. Zakir Hussain sir to introduce the speaker to the audience. Thank you.
Good morning, respected Reverend Fathers, and a very good morning to the R.P. Chabra sir, who is a distinguished speaker today. And a good morning to our beloved IQAC coordinator, Sai Prasad sir, and all the participants. I welcome you to the workshop. So I would like to read the profile of our distinguished speaker, Professor Rajendra Prasad Chabra sir. He is my professor when I was at IIT Kanpur for my PhD studies. He is the professor who inspired me to teaching. So I feel extremely lucky that the God and our management has given me the opportunity to read about the professor. So sir, he is currently associated with IIT Roper as a mentor, and he was formerly at IIT Kanpur as professor and chair professor. He was a member of the board of governors of the Indian Institute of Petroleum and Energy, Visakhapatnam. Then Professor Chabra sir has completed BTech Chemical Engineering from University of Roorkee, presently IIT Roorkee, ME Chemical Engineering from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, PhD Chemical Engineering from Monash University, Australia. He has contributed for the development of science and engineering by publishing more than 560 journal articles, book chapters, books, etc., and received many thousands of citations for his articles. He has guided many BTech projects, MTech theses, PhD theses, and many of his students has been teaching in premier research institutes as well as in many industries they are working. He has numerous recognitions to his credits. So he's a fellow Indian National Academy of Sciences, then Indian National Science Academy, New Delhi, then J.N. Gupta and Srimati M.D. Gupta, Chair Professor, fellow Indian Academy of Sciences, fellow National Academy of Sciences, India, fellow Indian National Academy of Engineering, Professor B.D. Tilak, Distinguished Lecturer from Indian Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Central Salt and Marine Chemicals Research Institute, CSIR, CSMCRI, ChemCon Distinguished Speaker Award he has received, P.D. Verma Memorial Lecture from the Department of Mathematics, University of Rajasthan, then Professor Gopal Tripathi, Memorial University Lecture from Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, and Hadilia Award of the Indian Institute of Chemical Engineers for the Excellence in Basic Research in Chemical Engineering, Amar Daikam Award of the Indian Institute of Chemical Engineers for Excellence in Research and Development for a chemical engineering below the age of 35 years, MS Shukla Prize for Best Paper in ChemCon, Best Poster Award in ChemCon, Gold Medal for the Best Design Project, the University of Roorkee Award for the second best student. Then coming to the Chabras's professional activities, he is a member editorial board, Journal of Non-Newtonian Fluid Mechanics, published by Elsewhere, Amsterdam, regional editor, Heat Transfer Asian Research, published by John Willey and Sons, New York. Then member editorial board, Indian Crops and Products, Elsewhere, Amsterdam. Member editorial board, Journal of Mining and Metallurgy. Then member editorial board, Indian Journal of Chemical Technology. He is also a member editorial advisory board in International Journal of Fluid Mechanics, Gulf, Austin. Member International Advisory Committee, Hydro Transport Conference, organized by BHR Group, Cranfield, United Kingdom. So Sir has been a reviewer for numerous number of journals. A long list of journals are there, which were published by many prestigious publishing agencies such as American Chemical Society, ACS, Elsewhere, Taylor and Francis, John Willey and Sons, American Society for Mechanical Engineers, Society of Petroleum Engineers, SPE. So some of the journals which he has reviewed is ASEC Journal, Chemical Engineering Research and Design, Journal of Applied Physics, Industrial and Engineering Chemistry Research Journal, Journal of Non-Newtonian Fluid Mechanics, Chemical Engineering Communication, Canadian Journal of Chemical Engineering, Chemical Engineering Biotechnology and Bioengineering, International Journal of Multi-Phase Flow, Chemical Engineering Science, International Journal of Mineral Processing, Journal of Rheology, Environmental Science and Technology, Chemical Engineering and Process, Indian Journal of Technology, Indian Chemical Engineer, Proceedings of National Academy of Science, Rheologica Acta, Development in Chemical Engineering and Mineral Processing, Journal of Thermophysics and Heat Transfer, Journal of Colloid and Interface Science, Journal of Applied Mechanics, published by American Society for Mechanical Engineers, Chemical Engineering Journal, International Journal of Heat and Mass Transfer, Powder Technology, Journal of Fluid Engineering, published by ASME, International Journal of Thermal Science, Applied Rheology, International Journal of Thermophysics, Journal of Applied Polymer Science, Journal of Heat Transfer, Journal of Computation and Applied Mathematics, Physics of Fluids, Society of Petroleum Engineers Journal, Langmuir Journal, Experimental Thermal and Fluid Science, Chemical Physics Letters, Journal of Fluid Engineering, Computers and Fluids, Polymer Engineering and Science, Microfluidics and Nano Devices, Proceedings of the Royal Society, Part A, Ocean Engineering, Industrial Crops and Products, Australia, Korea Journal of Rheology, Heat Transfer Engineering, International Journal of Chemical Engineering, International Journal of Chemical Reaction Engineering, Construction and Building Materials, Chemical Engineering and Technology, International Journal of Mining and Mineral Engineering, Experimental Heat Transfer, Journal of Fluid Mechanics, Canadian Journal of Physics, Brazilian Journal of Chemical Engineering, Communications in Nonlinear Science and Numerical Simulations, Progress in Computational Fluid Dynamics, Water Science and Technology, Heat Transfer Research, the IMA Journal of Applied Mathematics, International Journal of Nonlinear Science and Numerical Simulations, Journal of Mechanical Engineering Science, Journal of Soil and Sediments, Applied Mechanics Review. So this is such a long list of journals. Some of the professor has been acted as a reviewer, and he has been a guide for number of students, PhD, MTech students, and he is also an external examiner for MSc and PhD thesis of various universities, such as Monash University, Australia, University of Sydney, the University of Adelaide, Central Queensland University, RMIT University Melbourne, the University of Melbourne, Curtin University of Technology Perth, Sultan Qaboos University, Muscat, Oman, Cape Technicon, Cape Town, Cape Peninsula University of Technology, Cape Town, IIT Kharagpur, IIT Madras, IIT Mumbai, IIT Delhi, Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, University of Pune, Jadavpur University, Kolkata, University Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, then Ansem Angers University of Stellenbosch in Stellenbosch. So dear distinguished professor, for your kind information, I want to let you know that our participants are from various backgrounds, varied backgrounds. So majority of the participants are the doctorate degree holders, and they are postdocs. A couple of members are the postdocs. They are from University of North California, IIT ISM Dhanbad, then GMR Institute of Technology, Usmania University, Tata Steel, Dongyu University, Korea, Dow Chemicals Australia, University of Rajasthan, Patna University, Chaitanya Bharati Institute of Technology, CBIT, IIT Hyderabad. So around 20% are the doctorates and 30% are generally registered for PhD, as well as some of them, among them are the to be registered PhDs, and many of them are yet to register their PhDs. This is for your kind information, dear professor. Thank you for accepting our invitation, sir. Now the platform is yours. So I'm eager to listen from you, sir.
Dr. Zakir Hussain, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yes, sir. You are audible.
And my screen is visible?
Yes, sir. Absolutely visible. Yes. Sir.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. I am really humbled and honored by this kind invitation from the management of the Academy to this event, which is being organized by the Internal Quality Assurance Cell, Professor Sai Prasad, and the Department of Chemical Technology and the Telangana Academy of Skill and Knowledge. It's really a privilege to be able to share some of my ideas with such a broad spectrum of audience. And I'm just really overwhelmed. Okay, so before I start, I just want to give a bit of background that I have been teaching a subject like this now for almost 20 years. So that how did we think of this idea? And the question arose that if you want to be a school teacher, you need to undergo teacher's training like B.Ed or M.Ed or teaching certificate. Similarly, if you want to become a world-class tennis player, what do? You go to a tennis academy, you find a coach, you buy the equipment, racket, shoes, everything. And then you learn from your coach and you master the tricks of the trade. So this applies to every occupation. If you really want to be a world-class chef, a world-class baker, a world-class designer. So we asked a question that if you really want to become a world-class researcher, what are the tools? What are the skills which one must possess and sharpen them as the time progresses? So it's one of those things is very difficult to define. And we looked at how some of the great minds did their research. For example, we looked at biography of Newton. We looked at biography of Einstein, Stokes, and many people, Feynman. And there was no unique style. Everybody has his own style of doing things. But one thing which came through very common was that whatever they were doing, they were totally committed, they were passionate about it, and they were able to think differently. So that gave us some idea, and we then put together this course, which has various versions, 15 hours, 20 hours, 40 hours. So this is what I want to share with you. And I would feel very satisfied if even very few of you are able to take home a message. Okay, so let me see if I can find a laser pointer. Yes. And incidentally, this material is right now because a book is being currently written. So this book is really at the moment not out yet. So, I mean, this material, you can make use of it, but please do not distribute freely, even electronically to anybody. So since most of you have a background in science, and I don't make any distinction between science and engineering. So the question we can ask is, what science has done for you? Now, this is a very interesting question, and it can be answered at various levels. Wherever you are right now, in fact, without science, you will not have a YouTube, and you will not be able to listen to me while we are sitting hundreds of or thousands of kilometers away from each other. And we are even able to see each other. This is all because of science. Okay. Similarly, I think just look around whichever environment you are in. Look at all the items present in your room, including your garments, the food you eat, the paper you have on your desk, the cell phone you have on your desk, headset you have, pen you have, ink you have. Everything has been made possible through growth in science and research in science. So science is one of those nebulous words. It's very difficult to define very precisely. For example, there was a long-held, a very traditional view that science is only physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology. No, in fact, even economics is a science. Botany is a science. Science is all about the way you think about things. It doesn't matter what you're thinking about, okay? So science is way of thinking. All these things, science affects us all every day of the year. Look at any product here. It's all made possible by science. Okay? But I again want to say, science is much more than what you can see on your screen. All these products are consequences of scientific advances, scientific growth, but science is much more than this. Okay? Yes. I mean, we always think of science of big thing, like a rocket science, going to the space, going to the moon, going to the Mars. But sciences can be as simple as a simpler, smaller innovations like a fountain pen, a medication, a cooking oil. Just look how much science has gone into this in producing the bottle, shape of the bottle, then sticking a label on it, printing the label, and then processing the oil, and then securing it with a seal. This is all science. We just take it for granted. Even all of us indulge in some kind of sports activities. Whether you walk, you jog, or you play tennis, you badminton. Ask yourself, the shoes you are wearing while playing, how many chemical compounds are needed? No less than 35 compounds. Some for the mechanical strength, some for your comfort, some for aesthetics, some for taking the stress, some for making it waterproof. Okay, so there are so many compounds. Similarly, we take the cell phone for granted. Ask yourself, how many metals, how many elements from a periodic table? Periodic table contains some 125, 130 elements. The smart cell phones require no less than 75 elements in small quantities. There is no doubt about it. Some for magnetic properties, some for electronic properties, some for waterproofing, some for memory, some for mechanical strength, some to make it waterproof, some sensors, some for aesthetics. 75 elements, that's more than half of your periodic table. Okay, so we cannot take things for granted. This is what science is about. Science is about asking questions, thinking about things. And just to tell you, the recently concluded Olympics in Tokyo, 50% of the gold medals were made from the gold which was extracted from electronic waste. So it's not that small quantity either. So it's just a question of challenging yourself that how can we recycle those precious metals. Remember, resources are limited. Whether it's fuel, whether it's minerals, they're all limited. They will not last forever. So we must learn to use them economically. We should learn to recycle them wherever possible. This is what science is all about. making strides in medicine and getting personal. COVID-19 is a very good example. How an event can paralyze the whole world. So on one hand, we live in a very interconnected world. What is available in New York today is also available in Secunderabad. That's a good thing. But the bad thing is when a pandemic starts, it can paralyze the whole world. You have not been able to travel for the last 18 months as you would like to. So all these things, science can only teach you, but how to use that knowledge is up to us. To use it for good reasons, to use it for bad reasons. So Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin, so that message has come very strong that we need to maintain our personal hygiene. So all this is science. But even this does not capture the whole picture of science. Well, polio. Its advances like polio vaccine that we have been able to eradicate. Okay. We have improved our refrigerators. We are not using chlorofluorocarbons anymore because they were toxic, they were obnoxious. This is all possible because of science. It's very difficult. This is what I said. Science is very difficult to define. Research is also a similar word. All of us know what research means, what it entails, but yet we are not able to define it very precisely. No matter what definition you put together, people will find gaps in it, weaknesses in it. Okay. All these images are an aspect of a science, but a complete view of science is more than any particular instance. Whether you're doing something in chemistry or you're doing something underwater, you're doing something in the agriculture, you're doing something in obscure, remote, desert areas, using cameras. All this is science, but I keep saying science is much more than this. Oops. For example, you know a sparrow, that little bird. The question one can ask is, the song it sings, is it encoded in its genes or is it learned? So how do you try to answer this question? Well, if the song is genetically encoded into its genes, it doesn't matter where the bird grows up, it will sing the same song. On the other hand, if the song is learned, you can make a baby sparrow grow among the crows and see if it sings like a crow or sings like a sparrow. This is science also. People are interested in this. For example, when you go to a new town and you're trying to locate an address, these days you have Google Maps and GPS. 25 years ago, there were no maps, there was no Google, there was no internet. So if you went to a new place, how did you find out that, let's say you have to go for an interview? You will ask people that I want to go to this address. How do I go? How far it is? Which direction it is? Have you ever wondered how do the birds navigate? You know, they leave their nests in the morning. Then whole day they are somewhere else. But in the evening, they come back to the same place. How? How do they navigate? How do they know where to come back? Do they have a memory like us? Do they remember the physical landmarks like tall trees, some building, some tower or something? Nobody knows. Penguins, they go into the oceans miles and miles every day. Yet in the evening, they come back to the same place. You know, butterflies have a very short lifespan. They fly from the Canadian Rockies to the East Coast to avoid the winter. It takes 3 generations to complete that journey. The question is, how does the next generation know where to go or where to come back? How does the dying parents tell their young kids, this is where you need to go? Or is it just encoded in their genes? They know where to go. Or if you think beyond physics, chemistry, and biology, all of us do this. We put some food here. We want to trap the rat. But rat is also doing a mental calculation. He wants the food, but he doesn't want to be caught. So he's also doing a calculation how to avoid being caught, but still manage to get the food. And he does not get caught every time while he takes away the food. So like when you want to cross the road, we look to the right, we look to the right, left, and see what traffic is coming. And we do a mental calculation. Can I cross the road before the truck comes or before the bus comes? Similarly, cats and dogs also do it. They don't want to die. Okay. So this is a very, very narrow view of science. This is not a complete view. Science is much more than this. Okay, as I said, science is more of a way of thinking about things. You think logically, you think systematically, you think in a very consistent manner. So the real process of science is all about having ideas. How did people think of cell phones? What was the precursor to cell phone? Well, let's say we only had landlines, and if somebody called you, if you are at home, you can talk, otherwise you cannot talk. So if you're traveling, you're not able to talk. You're not able to receive a call. So then there were cordless phones in between that, okay, if I'm upstairs and the phone is ringing downstairs, I can answer upstairs also if I have a cordless phone. That was an improvement. And then the problem is that if I'm traveling, I'm completely disconnected from the rest of the world, from my own family, my friends, because they don't know where I am. I don't know where they are. So if they need to contact me, how to do it? Cell phone is the solution. But now just ask yourself, how much research, how much knowledge of electromagnetic waves, image processing, transmission of signals, all this was done by Marconi, Bose, Boltzmann, Maxwell, all these people. They just did the background work and we just put them to use. That's all. So it's all about testing an idea. You look at the benefits and the outcomes. Why every pharmaceutical company is trying to develop a vaccine for COVID-19? Because at this point, if we do not vaccinate everybody, nobody is secure. Because we live in a very highly interconnected world. So you have benefits to derive from it at the community level, at the country level, at the global level. Sometimes the community tells you and gives you a feedback that I think we need to clean up our water bodies. And some people are purely thinking what is not relevant today, but may will become useful in 20 years from now. So when PCs were introduced, it was thought that maybe only one PC and maybe 1,000 PCs will be sufficient for the whole world. Nobody imagined that we will be able to do so many things with the PCs, with the laptops, with the cell phones. And now you see, if you don't have one of these devices, people look at you. He says, what? You don't have a cell phone? So this is all because when science is done, it's not very clear whether this information is useful or this is not useful. So there is nothing called a useful science and a useless science. Everything is useful. So it's a very, very interconnected, very cyclic process. Sometimes ideas evolve from here, then you go back and feed back into that. Sometimes ideas evolve from here. They feed the testing ideas, then go back, and then exploration, discovery. So it's a very big interacting, a very like a maze. And here are, you can see, it shows that it's not a linear process. You cannot say that I will develop this vaccine in 10 days time. That if I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. Research is not a linear process because you don't know the result. If you knew the answer, you would not be doing the research. That is the thing. So if tomorrow's thing depends upon today's experiment, and if today's experiment does not come out as per your expectations, what will we do tomorrow? We will have to rethink what to do. Okay. So this is a very, very interactive process that sometimes you start from here, you test ideas, you feed back here, reach here, and go back here. So it's a very, very, it's almost writing your PhD thesis. People who have finished their PhD thesis, they will say that it's not a linear process. Sometimes I have to go back and do something differently. Sometimes I have to go sideways and do something different. So look at all these products. To a layman, it's all paper, which is made from timber. But to a specialist, each paper is different because each paper has a very different purpose. So it must meet different specifications. It must have different properties. Tissue needs to be very soft, like the diapers for the baby, because this must be soft on the skin. It cannot be very harsh. Whereas here, for storage, I need mechanical strength and waterproofing because I am carrying food. Okay, so photographic paper is even different. Your food containers have to meet different standards. So the idea is that even if we teach you about paper making, we cannot tell you about all these nitty-gritty details. So if we can teach you that how to learn on your own, how to think on your own, that will be the greatest teaching, greatest service we can do to you. Look at all these products. Food, shelter in a very, very remote areas. For example, Siachen, it's very cold there. There are security forces which are keeping us safe. But think about them, where the temperatures can be sub-zeros. How do they keep warm? There may not be electricity. There may not be the food of their choice. Or think of a desert. It's so hot, so dry. So we have to think that what kind of shelters will be giving them some comfort, which will protect them from heat, will protect them from insects and other things. Environment, clothing. In fact, even the clothes you are wearing right now, look at the buttons, look at the zips. Probably you are wearing a synthetic shirt and a synthetic trousers, the shoes, the socks, all of them are man-made. The space program, you know, people are talking about going to the Mars for tourism. All this is thanks to the science. Look at all these products. So engineering has a very, very diverse and a broad range of opportunities available. If you think yourself that you are a a responsible citizen of this globe. Our life revolves around three elements: air, water, and soil. Everything our crude oil, our minerals, natural gas, everything is in the soil. Water we need to drink, air we need to breathe. How long can you live without food? Maybe 2-3 days. Mahatma Gandhi was able to fast for 30 days. How long can you live without water? Maybe for a day. For example, ladies do observe a fast in which they don't drink water the whole day. How long can you live without air? Maybe a few seconds. If our life depends upon this, why we are not taking precautions? Why are we not taking care of our environment, our water supply, our soil? Our soil is contaminated. Our water is contaminated. Our air is contaminated. So, our life depends upon this. Because we are not able to take care of them, we have health issues. We fall sick. Then we need medications. We need cure. We need therapy sometimes, radiotherapy, cancer therapies. We need to diagnose what's the problem. Prophylaxis is preventive. Sometimes we take preventive steps, like we want to build up immunity and all those things. Hygiene. The importance of hygiene cannot be overemphasized in what we have seen in COVID-19. That wash your hands properly, cover your nose, they teach you how to sneeze. And our life depends upon agriculture. We need to protect the crops. In the harvesting season, we produce a lot of it, which we cannot consume. So we must process the foodstuffs so that we should conserve them. For that, we need additives. So now you just think about this and tell me anything you are doing, whether you're doing electrical engineering, computer science, mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, biology, chemistry, physics, economics, you are all contributing to some aspect of this. What you see on this. Why are we developing cell phones? We want to improve the quality of life. Why we are developing new varieties of food, rice and wheat, so that we can feed everybody. So anything we do, this is the ultimate purpose, ultimate goal of doing research and science in anything. So there is no question that there is a direct connection between the strong economy of a nation and its engineering activities. For example, India is, people say, a largely an agricultural economy. Yes, maybe. Maybe not to the same extent as it was 30 years ago. So why we do not think about modernizing our agriculture practices like Israel has done? They are thinking about vertical agriculture so that we don't need so much space. Can we go vertical? Can we go on the bed of the ocean? Can we go on the bed of the ocean to grow something? So clearly, if we want to do that, we have to think of different varieties of wheat, different variety of rice, different variety of vegetables. This is all science. Okay? And therefore, research is vital to sustain a strong economy. Every prime minister, every president of any country in the US will tell, or in the world, will tell you how important is research. Management of every school, every college, the principals, the directors, the vice chancellors, they all say research is important. So I hope I have been able to convince you that why research is important for all of us, as also emphasized by Professor Sai Prasad in his opening remarks. We should get into the habit, into the culture of doing research. Research doesn't have to be a blue sky research. You just look around and there are many opportunities. Whether you want to think in terms of safety record of our trains, you want to improve the quality, you want to improve the quality of air, drinking water, we want to think of feeding everybody. These are all areas which merit research. Medication. So, as I said, research is one of those words which is very difficult to describe and define. So my best definition, which I at least like, which you don't have to like, is by Professor Batchelor. People who are from chemical engineering or mechanical engineering, they would probably recognize his name. He was the founding editor of Journal of Fluid Mechanics, and he was the editor for a long, long time, maybe some 30 years or something. Not only that, he did a very original research in the field of turbulence. So he has a book on turbulence, which was written back in 50s. At the same time, he has a book on fluid mechanics, which is called An Introduction to Fluid Dynamics. It was, I think, published in 1967, and it is still available, and it has not a word has changed. Okay, so he did not find it necessary even to change one word in these 50 years. So he says scientists and engineers engaged in intensive research lead uncommon and many would say strange lives. It's a very, very powerful statement. So what he's saying is that research is not a 9 to 5 job. It's not a Monday to Friday job. If you are deeply involved in research, you are thinking about it all the time. You are breathing it, you are living it, you are dreaming about it. Their objectives are vague and uncertain. Yes, because I don't know where I will arrive at. Because if I knew the answer, I would not be doing research. And it's uncertain whether I will succeed or I will not succeed. But the nice things about science is nothing goes to waste. The future generations build upon what our predecessors have done. So the success is difficult to evaluate. I mean, what you call a good research. Sadly, these days it has just become counting the number of papers. But research is much more. See, research is we are producing professors of tomorrow. They should be all well-rounded personalities. They should publish papers, yes, but they should also teach other things to the students, like the mission of your academy, like socially conscious, to make them responsible citizens. The pursuit of elusive new ideas is both frustrating and stimulating. Frustrating because when results don't come for months and months, you are working hard, but nothing is happening. But it's stimulating when you have a eureka moment, like Archimedes. You feel on the top of the world. And making progress does not mean that there is less to do in the future. So he used to say, a good research is one which answers one question, but it raises 10 more questions. So that now 10 more PhD students can work on that. And this is how the science grows in a very rapid way. Inspiration and communication of research are two important aspects of research. All of us get inspirations from different sources. We look up to our role models. Sometimes we are just observing things around us, and that inspires us. And the communication of research is very important. You should share. No point in just keeping it to yourself. You can share in the form of a book, you can share in the form of a research paper, you can share in the form of a conference paper. Whatever vehicle you choose, whatever medium you choose is. And he also goes to say that research is the search for truth, whether mundane or profound. The process is complex and iterative. It is going up blind alleys to see if they are really blind. If I ask you, we are standing at the bottom of the mountain. What is behind the mountain? I don't know, because it has not been possible to climb the mountain and look at the other side. Okay, so who knows? So this is why sometimes you take a turn and very soon after a week or so realize that this is a dead end. I'm not going to be able to progress further for a variety of reasons. Sometimes you are violating some laws of nature, conservation of mass, Newton's laws of motion, first law of thermodynamics, second law of thermodynamics, ideal gas law. Sometimes you see your own mistake that this was a unrealistic assumption. Okay, so it's going up the blind alleys to see if they are really blind. So what is the nature of science? Science is like a pyramid. Pyramid is built by research traditions. So any structure requires a foundation. So foundation is laid in our school, in our college, in our BTech, in our MTech. We learn all the subjects possible: English, history, geography, civics, economics, physics, chemistry, maths, biology. That is our foundation. You can't go from grade 5 to grade 10 directly. So take Copernicus or Newton out. You have to rethink Einstein. What does that mean? Newton would not have been able to do if Copernicus has not done what he did. Einstein would not have been able to do if he did not have the results which were given by Newton. So this is like building a house. You can't start with a roof. You have to start at the foundation. You can't say I'll build the roof first, then the walls, then the foundation. So science is like a pyramid in that sense. Science relies on facts. If I give you a glass which has a volume of 200 milliliter and it contains 100 milliliters of water, the fact is it contains 100 milliliter of water in a 200 milliliter of jar. Interpretation is some people will say it's half full, others will say it's half empty. That's the interpretation. But you cannot change the fact that there is 100 milliliter of water in a 200 milliliter jar. That's the fact. Okay. Research tradition uses two methods of reasoning: induction and deduction. And we do use it. Induction is you do a small set of experiments and then you generalize. So this is how you do your research, that you do some 100, 200 experiments in fluid mechanics, heat transfer. And if somebody else does the same experiment, he will not do exactly the same experiments. He'll have a different setup. He will use different fluids. He will use different flow rates. But it is expected he will get the same results as you did. Deduction is you have a grand hypothesis. You can start with the most generalized equation of the state, Pang-Robinson. And then you keep making simplifications. So first you get a van der Waals equation, then you get an ideal gas law. So both traditions are there. Theories are produced by intuitive insights and constantly improved by iteration. I mean, after all, Galileo, Kepler, they were all interested in how the planets move relative to each other. Are they going around each other in circular orbits? And then later on, it was found that they're not circular orbits, they are slightly elliptic orbits. So you improve constantly. I mean, what our previous generations were not able to do. Some of those things we are able to do because we have more powerful computers. We have better electronics, we have better measuring capability, or we simply have better ideas. Okay. In the end, it is the logic and the experiment which will verify. If I ask you that, give me a proof of ideal gas law, you cannot give me a proof. You cannot sit down and derive it from the first principles. On the other hand, all it requires to disprove is do an experiment in which ideal gas law does not hold. As long as you make sure that the conditions are satisfied, which are the assumptions in the ideal gas law. Similarly, Newton's laws of motion. You cannot give me a proof. The only thing is we are not able to construct an experiment. We are not able to think of a situation where it does not apply. That is the proof. Okay. Theories can only be corroborated and not proved. This is what I already said. So this is how I think the way we know science began with in the 16th century with Copernicus, so sun-centered universe. See, people were interested in different things. Vesalius was interested in human anatomy in 1543. Galileo was thinking about the planetary moons. Harvey took on from Vesalius and he was thinking about human circulatory system. Descartes, after whom we have the Cartesian coordinates x, y, z, he developed a scheme which takes away any personal bias from the science. See, science is global. Science is not a property of an individual or of a country or of a society or of a culture. So science is global. So we have to remove any bias, it has to be objective. So he gave us what is known as the scientific method. Galileo was also interested in the law of falling bodies. Meanwhile, Boyle came and gave a Boyle's law. Robert Hooke, whom we know from Hooke's elasticity, actually his major contribution is in microscope. And of course, here is Newton. So now if you take away one of the links from here, Galileo or Descartes, this link will be broken. This structure will collapse. This pyramid will fall down. Okay. So this is what I meant, that if you take away Copernicus or Newton, Einstein would not have been able to do. And the other thing I want to tell you is that all these people were doing it because they were curious. They just wanted to know how does the nature function? How do the various things function? They had no idea how will it be used, who will use it, whether will it be abused or whatever. Okay, that was not in their mind at all. Then came Fahrenheit. We take thermometer for granted, but it's not all that old, only 200, 300 years. Then Linus, he was able to specify all the species classification, Franklin electricity, vaccinations, John Dalton atomic theory, William Buckland, he was interested in scientific description of dinosaur. Ohm's law, Doppler effect, Lord Kelvin gave us absolute zero. Louis Pasteur gave us microorganisms and disease. Darwin. They were all building upon what their predecessors had done. They are not standalone. But none of these people imagined that we will be able to clone a mammal in the lab. So in 1996, we produced a sheep, completely cloned. So to say, synthetic or a man-made mammal. And now, in fact, we have a complete human genome sequencing. Now, I can design a human being that I want him to have blue eyes. I want him to have an IQ of this much. His height should be this. His skin color should be this. This is why I said science is very difficult to define precisely. This is all science. People say you have to be creative. But what is the definition of creativity? All of us are creative in different ways, in different styles. We are all creative people. creative process has 4 distinct stages. First thing is somebody is bothering you, something is troubling you. This is a preparation stage. For example, you can ask a question. Why the color of the sky is blue? This is the preparation stage. You are troubled by this. Why the color of water in the Indian Ocean is blue? Some other oceans, Mediterranean, are even more blue. Why? So this is a preparation stage in which you are just gathering information. You're just thinking about it. You're just pulling together all the foundation you have built in your school, college, BTech, and all physics, chemistry, mathematics, optics you study. After all, color is a matter of optics only, that how the eye sees it. So our left brain does that. We have restlessness, we are just mulling over, it's churning in our head. Incubation stage. The right brain is trying to see that what is the left brain trying to do. Right brain is trying to imagine the big picture, whereas the left brain is worried about the details. Then there is a suddenly eureka moment. The right brain's insights and intuition produce a range of possible solutions.
From MBA, I started my, I don't have lecturer for the subject BBM. From then I am weak only.
But remember,
I really don't go to this.
all solutions which are given by the right brain, they still have to be verified by a logic. And the left brain is our CPU. It has all the logic rules in it. So there is a verification stage. The left brain logically vets and screens the solutions and assembles the correct solution into a finished form. This is how, and now if you reflect on it for a moment, this is what we do all the time. If I pose you a question, even in the class, you were just thinking about it. You are gathering all the things that how to answer this question. Then you immediately produce, maybe this is the answer, maybe this is the answer, maybe this is the answer. This is how you take exams in multiple choice questions. Then you narrow down the solutions and then you check it finally that I think this is my best. So in doing this, you have used all your knowledge, what you have accumulated over the years. So this is how research is also done. So creativity is really a reflection of synergy between the left and the right parts of the brain. It's very important, and it's unfortunately there is nothing we can do about it. God has given you a brain. God has given you left brain, right brain. So that's your luck or whatever. I've already said this, right brain is so effective in generating ideas based on the visual thought process because it has no regard for logic or structure. It's just giving you solutions. It's just throwing out solutions at you. So the left brain has to figure out which one of them is the best solution. Okay. So what are the characteristics of a researcher? You should be a prepared and open mind. Open mind, you should be willing to challenge. You are willing to listen to a different argument. You are willing to see a different solution to a problem. You should have broad interest in several things. You see, we talk about cross-fertilization of ideas. So you should have broad interest. For example, fluid mechanics is done by chemical engineers, by mechanical engineers, by civil engineers, by aerospace engineers, by physicists, by biochemical engineers, by food engineers. So how can fluid mechanics be different? Only the applications can be different. So sometimes we can learn from others that how they are doing it. We should have a capacity for hard work. There is no shortcut to success. Students tell me I can do it. I tell them there is a difference between can do it and doing it. If you do it, then you will realize what difficulties you face. Okay. You should have a desire to know the truth and an ability to challenge the prevailing paradigms. If we were happy with the landlines, we will not have cordless phones, we will not have cell phones. Somebody felt the need that no, there is a need to have a device which allows you to connect with anybody in the world, no matter where you are, in a car, in a flight, in a train, at home, wherever. So you have to challenge. Discrimination. Discrimination, I don't say in a negative sense. Discrimination, I say that you may have 10 ideas which look all interesting. Using your foundation, you should be able to tell which of these 10 ideas are the most promising ones, which are likely to succeed. You should focus on those ideas. So discrimination in that sense. You can't pursue all the 10 ideas. You should have the ability to iterate by learning from mistakes of the past. You can make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But as long as you don't repeat the same mistake again and again. If you keep making the same mistake, that means you're not learning. You can make a new mistake every time. That's all right. But you cannot make the same mistake more than once. You should have learned what not to do. And of course, you should maintain a positive attitude and a faith in the scientific method. Remember, if you are setting out to prove a theorem, anybody in the world can also prove the same theorem using the tools you have used. So you don't have any special magic. This is scientific method. Okay. So what are the skills? Thinking, knowing your subject, understanding your subject, where to use it, how to use it. For chemical engineering students, you know how to calculate Gibbs free energy. Nobody will ask you to calculate Gibbs free energy for this case. You have to figure out where do I need to calculate Gibbs free energy, which will tell me whether this reaction is feasible or this reaction is not feasible. Problem solving requires 3 steps. Problem identification. It can be very vague. Problem formulation in terms of the terminology you understand, and then finding the solution. And of course, critical thinking, creative thinking, they're all related. Problem finding and formulation. The problem formulated properly is more than half the solution. You asked a well-posed question, you are likely to find an answer. You asked an ill-posed question, you're not likely to find an answer. So formulating the problem, defining the problem is just as important as finding the problem and solving the problem. Technical communication, we have talked about it, is very important. You should have some sense of experimentation. You should have some common sense, some engineering sense, some modeling. Time and stress management, interpersonal skills, and ethics. So today we are mostly talking about thinking and the ethics, because all these things are important, but we have limited time. So ability is what you are capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do, and attitude determines how well you do it. Ability is your score. How many marks did you get in fluid mechanics? Motivation is what do you want to do with that knowledge. And attitude is how well you want to utilize that knowledge. Okay. So this is very important. Few people think more than 2 or 3 times a year. I have made an international reputation for myself by thinking once or twice a week. Bernard Shaw, you see, he's not asking you to do too much thinking. He's only asking you to think once or twice a week, but think hard about it. So how do we think about things? Let's see. We have 4 squares here. And there are 4 questions. You don't have to remember the diagram, right? Diagram will appear every time. So the first question is, divide the white area and square A into 2 equal pieces. That's easy. We have to divide in 2 parts. We have divided in 2 parts. Divide the white area and square B into 3 equal pieces. It's not so difficult. Square. Now divide the white area and square C into 4 equal parts. Now we need to think a little bit to divide, how to divide into 4 equal parts. I cannot divide this into 2 equal parts. I cannot divide this into 2. So I really cannot use this approach. And this has 3, which I want to convert into 4. So now this is little bit difficult, right? So this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now comes the final answer. Last question. Divide the white area square B into 7 equal pieces. It's very difficult because there are 4 here and I want to divide into 7. There are 2 here. 7 is an odd number. There are 3 here, but it's very difficult to divide these 3 into 7 parts. Here is the answer. So what happened? This is not difficult. You can draw vertical lines also. Okay. This is because our mind got conditioned. We were thinking along the same lines always. Like, oh, can I divide these 2 parts into 7 parts? Can I divide these 3 parts, these 2 parts into 4 parts, or these 3 into 7 parts? We were not thinking. We were always thinking that, oh, this was easy, this was a little hard, this was even more hard. So we were expecting a very hard answer here, very difficult answer. It was not that tough. If we did not get the answer, it was just that our mind was conditioned to seek a complex solution. We were not thinking. We had gone in auto mode. Okay. Sometimes, let's say this is a box in which we cannot see. It contains 100 beads and total weight of the beads is 200 grams. There are red beads which weigh 20 grams. There are white beads which weigh 6 grams, and there are blue beads which weigh 1 gram. How many red, white, and blue beads are there? Remember, we don't want to use trial and error. We want to develop a systematic way of thinking about things. So what can we do? This is how we will do that. Okay, that are red, white, and B, they all add up to 100. These are their weights. Each red one weighs 20, each white one 6, blue is 1. So they should add up to 200. That's all we have. We have 3 unknowns. We have 2 equations. So what will be our approach? We are inclined to quit. This problem cannot be solved. But ask yourself, even if I eliminate one of them, I'll get 1 equation, 2 unknowns. Think, what else do we know? Yes, we know that all these have to be integers, R, W, D. We cannot have a 0.5 of a bead or 0.3 of a bead or 0.6 of a bead. So all these are integers. So that's an additional piece of information. So now I do have 2 equations plus 1 piece of information which I'm not able to write in terms of an equation. But I do have an information. So if you recognize that there is only one solution, and that is there. Okay. So it does have a solution. It looks very ill-defined. So this is what I mean, that we have to formulate a problem properly rather than just looking at it and saying, oh, well, I don't know. I have 3 unknowns, 2 equations, I can't solve it. With a little bit of thinking, we do something else also, that all three numbers have to be integers. So how do I convert that information into? So lessons learned are, most of the times our mind gets conditioned so much by the circumstances that we cannot see the obvious. When we go to a specialist doctor with a simple headache, the diagnosis starts on a migraine afterwards. He will do your CT scan, MRI and everything. It may be a simple headache. We assume that things are so complicated and we get entrapped. We teach our students too much logic and to think in terms of equations only. Sometimes I'm sure if you ask your father or your grandfather who doesn't know algebra, he'll answer this question. You can try. Okay. This is thinking. So that brings me, what is thinking? Thinking is the basic biological purpose of thinking is to enable a living organism to survive by getting the things it needs and staying clear of dangerous things. This is what we do. I mean, we go to work. Why do we go to work? Because we want to earn some money. Why do we want to earn some money? Because we want to have food. We want to have some luxuries in our life. We want to have a car. We want our children to go to good schools and all those things. We don't get involved in crimes, murders, killing people, robbing people, looting people. Those are the dangerous things. So any action we think about, we are just thinking about it. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Irrespective of what one is thinking about, the underlying phenomena is the same. The biochemical reaction going on in your brain is the same, whether I'm thinking about a chemical engineering problem, or I'm thinking about my own marriage, or I'm thinking about what is there for dinner tonight. My brain doesn't know what we are thinking about. The thing is, we are given a stimulus to the brain, and brain gets it acts together, and biochemical reaction starts, and that's it. So this can make you think. When you find something on the road, very unusual, you are curious, what is it? So this young lady has hit upon this shell of a turtle, of a tortoise, a complete shell. So she's just thinking what it is. This period is filled with a lot of ideas. All kinds of things come to your mind that, okay, because it's found next to a water body, so it has to be an animal which lives in water, close to water. So you think in terms of turtles, fish, frogs, all those things. So you think about these things. So there are three levels of thinking: instincts, learning, and understanding. Instincts is what you are born with, God has given you. If a baby doesn't cry, mother doesn't feed. Correct? Learning, what you learn in schools. School, college, degree college, BTech, MTech, at home, from Wikipedia, from internet, from books, whatever. Understanding is that how do you convert an unfamiliar situation into familiar situation by using your instincts, by using your learning. That's understanding. That's what I said. We can teach you how to calculate Gibbs free energy, but it's for you to figure out where shall I use it, how shall I use it. That only when the situation presents itself, you have to make the connection. So understanding is entirely your experience. You have to develop it. So what are the levels of understanding? Bloom's taxonomy. Knowledge, recalling facts from memory. This is the simplest. How to calculate area of a circle, how to calculate volume of a cube. Comprehension, understanding the meaning. What does it mean? What does 4 by 3 pi r cube mean? What P is equal to nRT mean? Applications. Using in a new application. You have to decide, can I use ideal gas law here? Do I need to use Van der Waals equation? Do I need to use some other equation? Sometimes you're dealing with a complex problem. You cannot tackle the entire problem in just one shot. So break it down into smaller parts, analysis, and tackle one by one, and then synthesize. Now construct a new integrated whole. Judge, you must evaluate. I always tell students, before you give an answer to the professor, think about your answer. Does it make sense? Is it reasonable? Or is totally absurd? Simply because you have got an answer out of a calculator, but it could be wrong because it all depends upon what input data you have given. If you make one mistake, your answer would be wrong. So always think about it, reflect on it, using judgment to make decisions whether this is a good answer or this is not a good answer. So a student and his professor are hiking and camping in the mountains when a bear starts to chase them from a distance. They both start running, but it is clear that eventually the bear will catch up with them. The student stops and starts putting on his running shoes, and his professor says, "Come on, don't be silly. You can't outrun the bear even in the running shoes." Probably correct, because that professor has a lot of experience. The student says, "I don't need to outrun the bear. I only need to outrun you. So if the bear catches you, he'll be busy eating you and I'll go away." This may sound very unkind, but when you need to think, this is how you need to think. Loss of 2 lives versus 1 life. Okay? So, and I mean, these are situations you can see in everyday life. For example, the bomb explosion in Lebanon. Everybody will try to run, but still 2,000 people died. So people who could run, they ran. People who could not run, they did not run. Whatever the reasons, their age or whatever. So this is what thinking is all about, the thinking on the spot. Sometimes you construct models in your mind. Chemistry people do it. They make a molecule of a model of a molecule. When they're not able to visualize the bond sizes, bond angles, bond lengths, that this bond is shorter than this, how come then this is attached here? They build models. Engineering people also build small scale models in the lab, which they test. For example, all these new models of the car, Tata's, they don't simply make a new model. First, they test this small scaled down models for the stability, fuel economy, comfort, before they make the actual model. So I often ask the students, when you see this figure, what comes to your mind? What are the possibilities? Well, 2 circles joined by a line. You're thinking in a plane. 2 spheres joined by a rod. You're thinking 3-dimensional. A line with a circle at either end. Dumbbell, molecule. It's a toy. Kids have those rattlers. 2 circles with a short tail and placed back to back. 2 long cylinders joined by a thin sheet. We are looking at one end. These could be actually cylinders. And what looks like a line, that could be a sheet. So you've already created so many possibilities just for the same figure. So this is how, when you think about some research problem, you create a library of possibilities. And then remember that discrimination. Now choose between them that which one is the most promising one. Okay? How will you describe this picture? Okay? If 80 of you are attending this lecture, there should be 80 ideas. This is how you think about this. What do you think if you go to the Microsoft office in Bangalore or even Seattle? What will you see there? You will see a lot of servers, a lot of machines, a lot of computers. Yes? Probably each IIT or each university has many more computers than they have. Yet we are not able to do what they are able to do. Their asset is not the computers. Their asset is the human imagination. They are able to imagine. They are able to see what people need. Oh, they didn't like this version of MS Office last time. Let's improve upon it. So it's the imagination. For a researcher, this is the greatest asset. If you are able to imagine, if you are able to postulate a problem, you are able to identify a problem, solution will come. If you don't find the solution, somebody else will find the solution. But you will go down in the history that, oh, he gave this problem, he posed this problem. So as a researcher, our greatest asset is human imagination. I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I know. Their names are what and why and when and how and where and who. Kipling. So you should ask questions. Okay. What is it for? Why? When? How did it occur? Where did it occur? Who made it occur? Okay. So as your motto says of the academy, also that reflect, experience, act. So if you act on something, reflect on it, improve, and act again. So if you go around this circle, you're bound to improve. Your research skills will improve. And the process continues. Okay. Also, positive attitude. If you think you can, you will. You will find a solution. If you think you cannot, you will not. You have given up. So maintain a positive attitude, not the negative attitude. So if someone says to you, try to see your own eyes, what do? It's impossible. You can look forward really intently, and no matter how hard you try to do it directly, you cannot. But the moment you discover a device called mirror, but if you come up with a clever thing called the mirror, you can do it. So sometimes you have to refocus your imagination. Forget about it, stop thinking about it. And suddenly the ideas will come in a flash. Sometimes you need a mirror to refocus your attention in a way that cannot be done. This is why it's very important for people to take time off, to take break. Simply going to work every day is not going to help. Okay. So this is a bridge on the river Ganga in Allahabad near Naini. And this was built by British engineers. So you can see that this pier is very different from all others. And the story is that engineer tried to build like this at this place also, but it was not staying. It was awash with water every time. So in fact, he even contemplated committing suicide because his superiors will see this as a failure that he's not even able to construct a bridge. So meanwhile, his wife died of tuberculosis in the 19th century. So one day she came in his dreams and she is standing in a stream of water. That gave him the idea that, oh, maybe this support needs to be in the shape of a foot. And this is what you call a streamline in these days. Okay, a streamlined object. So if you are passionate about it, processing will continue in the background all the time. How did Kekule thought of the structure of benzene? He saw a dream that a snake is trying to catch its own tail. That gave him an idea that benzene molecule must be a closed molecule. That's it. And this is the woman. So this is, if you are passionate about it, you will continue to happen. So we come to the part 2. Ethics in research. Ethics is like rules of the game. Like if you play badminton, there are rules. How you should dress up. What is out? How do you score points? Similarly in tennis. So there are rules here. One thing is because science is global, these rules are above all cultures, religions, boundaries, gender, everything. They are really global. So all cultures and societies have laid down guidelines, written or verbal, which determine what is an acceptable behavior. So science also has its own code of conduct. For example, no culture or religion will teach or preach one to be dishonest, cheat, steal, be unjust or unfair, cause harm, but yet open the newspaper every day or look at the TV news. We only hear about these things. So if people live by these virtues, we don't need police stations, we don't need judiciary, we don't need the lawyers. But most of us are good human beings. But we also have weaknesses, we have desires, we want to be famous, we want to earn a lot of money. We want to leave a legacy, you want to get a prize, you want to get a promotion, you want to get a job in Microsoft. So these urges make us do things at times which are not in line with what we want to live. So it's all about good and bad. Each of us is some mixture of good and bad. All of us are primarily very good, little bit bad once in a while. The question is, who should pronounce the final judgment on what is right, what is wrong? So we need to answer a question, what is science? Science is a way of thinking, as I said. Scientists seek answers to their own questions. Nobody asked Newton that you make laws of gravitation. Nobody asked Einstein, gave a formula, is equal to MC². He himself posed a question, he himself found an answer. So you compose a question, you seek an answer. So this is a process of inquiry. This is how we acquire knowledge. Okay, so science is all about acquiring knowledge. So I think we can skip this. How does one acquire knowledge? There are 5 techniques. Tenacity. You accept an idea which has already gained wide acceptance. Everyone knows that. Don't let a black cat cross your path. Many students will not take the exam without their lucky pen, pencil, hat. These are so-called habits or superstitions. Your parents have told you, you have learned yourself, oh, last time I was wearing that hat, I did very well. Intuition. It operates directly without any intellectual effort. These are the people on the roadside which tell your fortune. They are self-styled psychics. They have a hotline you've got. So we use this also once in a while when you are feeling very low, when you are troubled. You go to temples, you go to everything. Whoever can give you some comfort, you go. Information is accepted as true because it feels right. Instincts, hunches, gut feeling. One is always ill at ease in doing something because it doesn't feel right, you see. And we experience this in everyday life. Third is authority. Accept it because someone respectful source says so. Religious writings, Pope, Aristotle, Sigmund Freud. For many situations, this is an excellent starting point. It's quick, it's easy. For example, our school education is based on this. We don't challenge our teachers. We don't challenge the books. We don't challenge the internet. So this is. So what do these 3 styles have in common? Uncritical acceptance of an idea. We have not challenged. Because it has been always so. We feel it is so. Someone says it is so. All of us use some of these approaches in everyday life to smoothen our personal lives. Okay, I mean, after all, we go to temples, we are God-fearing people. We pray, we worship, we ask for favors from the God. Please get my son admitted into this college, that college, or whatever. Fourth way of acquiring knowledge is rationalism. You have some information, you apply some logic rules, and you come to a conclusion. Now, this is very different. Anybody can have this information. And if I share my algorithm, if he applies the same algorithm to that information, he will come to the same conclusions. It doesn't matter where he is, in the US, in India, in Africa, China, wherever. So there is nothing personal here. It's like a CPU of your laptop. If I give you my program, I give you my same input, your output will be exactly the same. Now this has immediately taken away all the bias. Purely a thought process. Yeah. All 4-year-old children have fears of the dark. Some people say this. David is a 4-year-old child. David has developed fears of the dark. That's okay, but what if David is not scared of dark? Then we have to challenge our original hypothesis. So underlying this hypothesis are there some assumptions that we are talking about human beings. We are talking about 4-year-old human beings. Why David is not scared of dark? Maybe hypothesis itself is incorrect. Maybe David is lying. He's 8-year-old actually. He's not a 4-year-old. David is the name of a dog or a goat. So it is implicit that has to be a 4-year-old human being. So therefore, major and minor premises must be true as determined by other evidence. Rationalism does not help in this regard. As I said, we cannot derive Newton's laws of motion from first principles. We cannot prove it, but one can disprove it by doing an experiment in which Newton's laws of motion do not apply. But nobody has been able to do that experiment until today. So that is the biggest proof that we have not found a contradiction. So it's called proof by contradiction. Okay, must be still validated through experiments and observations. And the last is empiricism, acquiring knowledge through observations of real events, experiencing through our senses. What are our senses? We can hear, smell, taste, touch. This is why I won't believe it unless I see it. All these people, Thales, Hippocrates, Galen, Copernicus, Galileo, Darwin, they used empiricism. Both these approaches are at odds with the first three. So rationalism and empiricism are different in one category, and the first, tenacity, authority, intuition are different. So in summary, tenacity is more like a habit or superstition. Intuition is hunch or a gut feeling. Authority is someone expert, but rationalism is based on reason and logic. Empiricism is based on direct sensory observation. So science uses these two techniques, the last two. Sir Francis Bacon used to say, scientists must be a disinterested observer of nature, whose mind was cleaned of prejudices and preconceptions. Ethics are all about this. When you do an experiment, you should have no prejudice, no preconception. You should have no wish that what should be the outcome of this result, of this simulation, of this experiment. Okay. For example, all these things is the first law of thermodynamics. This is the Newton's third law of motion. This is the Newton's second law of motion. They were framed by human beings like you and me. So how they were able to take away the personal bias from it? All of these laws are laws of science which have held up to intense scrutiny by the scientific community. Yet these were all proposed by humans who are not devoid of biases, desires, and personalities. For example, Newton was very ambitious. He wanted to be famous. So how did they remove the human element from these developments? So-called the scientific method. They used the last two, rationalism and empiricism. As I said, if I have the same data as you do, my interpretation can be different, but I cannot change the data, and the data represent the facts. Newton cannot change the movement of the planets. Whatever is their rate, whatever is their orbit, he cannot change. He can change the hypothesis. He can modify the hypothesis. Tool which reduces such biases and prejudices. It's very difficult to define precisely. And one technique is that follow me, and you simply cannot go wrong in the performance of your laboratory experiments. What it means is that you do utmost with whatever you have. Ethics are more about intentions, intentions to cheat, intentions to mislead. Errors do occur, people make mistakes. Newton also made a mistake, Einstein also made a mistake. But those were genuine mistakes. They were not by design. So ethics are about intentions, that you intentionally want to mislead somebody. Okay. So what constitutes unethical behavior or academic misconduct? Deviations from the commonly accepted practices in the scientific community. Ladd, a professor at the Brown University, says, professionals are not simply because they are professionals, exempt from the common obligations, duties, and responsibilities that are binding on ordinary people. What he says is, we cannot tell our kids that don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal when we do those things ourselves. So we have to lead by examples. We have to live by those virtues. Ethics are all about being honest, not stealing anybody else's intellectual property. Okay. So what to do with the offenders? There are watchdogs of science, there is a police, and punishment. But the paradigm is that everyone is innocent till proven guilty. Everyone is innocent. I mean, you don't go about asking anybody, are you a murderer, are you a thief? Here also, everybody is innocent till you get caught or till you are proven guilty. So the National Academy of Sciences in the US describes 4 types of misconducts: fabrication and falsification. Fabrication of data, or changing your data, modifying it, manipulation of data. Plagiarism. This is the most common and frequent. That you are stealing somebody else's intellectual property, whether it's language, whether it's words, whether it's ideas, and coercive citations. Giving references which are only peripheral and leaving out the key references, and not acknowledging the contribution of others and some authorship issues. So these are the main misconducts in research. How common is misconduct? Well, people believe reported cases are the tip of the iceberg. Estimates vary because it's very difficult. Some people estimate 3% to 32%. There was a survey conducted 20 years ago of so many scientists, and 3 out of 1,000 confessed cooking research data. Now, this number is large because, after all, it's taxpayers' money, which is being given by DST or by CSIR or by DRDO. Government doesn't have any money. It's the money they raise from the taxpayers. They give us the grants. So even this number is too high. Between this 12 years period by National Science Foundation of the US, they found 60 cases, 10% cases were misconduct. So that's quite a high percentage. Office of Research Integrity in the US looked at 10-year period. It's like so many FIRs lodged, so many cases were investigated. And out of these, there was a fabrication, falsification, plagiarism, and all. So these numbers are not small, 20%, 40%, 27%. This does a disservice. This slows down the progress of science. Because if I'm going to follow from your work and your data is not reliable, I'm being misguided. Then I have to go back and repeat your experiments produce reliable data, and then move on. So it's not only waste of resources, but it's also you are slowing down the progress. So what do we do with the offenders? Well, principles and standards are you should respect the intellectual property of others. You don't go about stealing your neighbor's property, neighbor's TV or jewelry or something. Similarly, here also, intellectual property is also a property. So you don't steal others' intellectual property. You should give credit, acknowledgement. But there is a very fine line between plagiarism. Giving a reference means you are telling your neighbor, I have stolen your TV, but still it's a theft. You should be honest. Data are critical for the advancement of science. So unintentional errors are okay. As long as they occur in good faith, there is no ethical violation. Because you didn't know. It was totally innocent. So ethics is more about intentions. Should be corrected at the earliest opportunity, but don't make it a habit, because then your professional reputation suffers. People say, oh, he's a sloppy researcher. Every time he writes something, he has to make a correction. Okay? Negligence. This is being sloppy, not following the protocols, calibrations, inappropriate screening of data. Like if the data doesn't lie on your graph, just hide it, don't include it. Falsification, hooking, massaging, nudging. All these terms are used in the literature. Fraud. This is complete fabrication of data. You did not go to the lab at all. Just put down some numbers. That's it. Self-delusion. Sometimes you have such a strong personal desire to advance, put down a model. Any opportunity you don't miss, although you don't have a case, you don't have data, you don't have evidence. This is being unfaithful. Okay. You should stand up for your scientific integrity. If you want to disagree, you can disagree respectfully. Remember, we are talking about disagreements in the science. You don't disagree with a person. He may have other good virtues, but his science and your science do not match. That's okay. It is the friction of debate. It's the very different viewpoints, divergent viewpoints, which ultimately lead to illumination. Ultimately, what will happen? Only the good ideas will prevail. Old ideas will be weeded out automatically. If not immediately, sometime later. Okay? So there are authorship issues. Rules of the game are very straightforward. Significant contributions merit co-authorship. Minor contributions deserve acknowledgements. People at times worry about order of authors, but I think it's a small matter. It should be in the order of decreasing contributions. The first author should have contributed the maximum. But all must be able to defend the work in the paper or the report. I mean, you want to be a part of a publication, but if that publication comes under criticism, you say, well, I didn't do that part. That is not fair. Okay. So I think regarding the first point, because it's very difficult to decide whether it's a significant contribution or a minor contribution, I think just share it when in doubt, share the credit, make him the co-author. So what is plagiarism? It comes from the Latin word plagiare, which means to kidnap. You have kidnapped somebody else's information. In everyday language, plagiarism is simply theft of words, ideas, thoughts of others, passing them off as yours without giving credit or due acknowledgements. Even if you give a reference, you are still stealing. It's like telling your neighbor that I have stolen your watch. This includes music, art, graphics, pictures, diagrams, TV broadcasts, websites, or any other communication media. Okay. For example, this is my book, And these are not my pictures. So I have written, the photograph on the cover is based on the photographs kindly provided by so and so, so and so, so and so. What do I lose? In fact, those three people feel good about it, that okay, they are being acknowledged. And you also have to be careful that once you publish a paper, you have transferred the copyright to the publisher. So even if you want to include your own figure from the paper, you read his permission or you modify the figure. So for example, we modified this figure by adding some more data to it. So I've written modified from Rajita P. These are the name of the authors. So this does not require a permission because I'm not using the original figure as it appeared in the paper. This is my own paper. Oh, sorry, this is an image again based on photographs kindly provided by a professor of Michigan Technological University. People ask how much can be quoted verbatim. There is no simple answer to it. 200 out of 300 words, definitely no. 2,000 words out of 500,000 words may be possible. More importantly, it matters what you are copying. If you are copying the heart of the matter, then it's not fair. So this is what happened in this case. There was a classic case. The President Ford of the US had written his memoirs, and the book was to be released a week later. And a magazine like Illustrated Weekly lifted 300 words like a preview. But then the publisher went to the court accusing the magazine that they have stolen our matter. The Supreme Court ruled that this was not a fair use because the material quoted was the heart of the book. It's like a thriller, and if I tell you who the murderer is, you would not be interested in reading the book. Okay, so infringement occurs even if the author is credited, because sometimes the author does not have the copyright. The copyright is with the publisher. So even if you take author's permission, he will say yes, but that doesn't mean anything. That will not stand in the court of law. You require permission from the copyright owner. Not being able to trace the copyright owner is no excuse. This will not stand in the court. So what are the consequences of plagiarism? It's a crime against academy. You are deceiving the readers and you are hurting the original authors. It's the worst behavior. It's like a sin. It's an act of treason. Obviously, there are different types and shades of plagiarism. A complete work copied, cut and paste. You take some information from the internet sources, some from the electronic journals. Even if you switch a word here and there, it's still a plagiarism. Self-plagiarism. You publish the same work multiple times using slightly different figures, slightly different language, recycling the text, figures, tables. So types of plagiarism. Text recycling, which is self-plagiarism. Often you should ask the questions, how much have you recycled? Where in the paper? Is it in the introduction or experimental part or results and discussion and conclusions? It is most acceptable in experimental part because if you are using the same experimental technique, you cannot change that. But everywhere else, this should not occur. You should acknowledge the sources. Is it an original research paper or is it a review paper? Is it a commentary? In review, it is allowed that you want to quote somebody. Comment you want to comment, that's also fair, but original research is taken more seriously. Breach of copyright. Are you breaching the copyright? That you are including a figure in your publication to which the copyright belongs to somebody else. If you do want to include, you need a permission from the copyright. So why do people plagiarize? Because they are greedy, they are lazy, They don't have time or they don't plan. They have a fear of failure, lack of confidence, pressure to produce. So here are some examples of misconduct. I show some of these historical examples to bring out the human side of these things. Even these people had some wishes, some desires. They wanted to be famous. They wanted to be known. So Galileo, who lived 400 years ago, he wrote about experiments that were so difficult to reproduce that many doubt if he actually conducted them. We simply are not able to reproduce, although we are in a better situation now. So we don't know whether it was fabrication, manipulation. Kepler, he also doctored his calculations to support that his theory will be good. Planets move in elliptic orbits, not in circles around the sun. A little bit of adjustment here and there. Newton, people say he slightly adjusted his calculations on the velocity of sound, on the precessions of the equinoxes so that they would support his theory. So see, they are also human beings like us. A little bit of adjustment of data. Dalton, a chemist, he reported some experiments 200 years ago, which no chemist since has been able to reproduce. Fudging, we don't know. Millikan, he got a Nobel Prize in physics for measuring the charge on an electron. He did not report unfavorable results of research carried out between 1910 and 1913. And this is more serious. He did experiments on 175 drops, but his paper has results only for 58 drops. So question is, what happened to the remaining 117 data points? And he wrote in the paper, it is to be remarked that this is not a selected group of drops, but represents all of the drops experimented upon during 60 consecutive days. Italics are in the original publication, not mine. So this shows the intention. When people analyze his data, all it would have done is it would have increased the scatter of the results. It would not have changed the average value at all. This is what people have found. But you see, so what was his wish? He wanted to come across as a very careful experiment. It's very good data, very little scatter. Okay, so we can come to more recent times. This was a famous game at the Bell Labs. He was interested in superconductivity, molecular crystals, electronics. He was producing one publication per week with a total 20 collaborators in Nature, Science, etc. It was found that he fabricated or altered data between these 3 years, at least on 16 occasions. So what happened to him? Not only Bell Labs fired him, the German university also withdrew his PhD degree. So today you are a star. People say he was maybe going to get Nobel Prize. But now, where are you? Where is he? Nowhere. Okay. Robert Slutsky, he was publishing a paper every 10 days. 48 were dubious, 12 were fraudulent. He just resigned himself. Huang, in 2005, a science paper, and co-author acted as the whistleblower by informing the media that he falsified the results for 9 of the reported 11 cell lines. Today you are a star. Tomorrow you can't even have a coffee with your friends. What greater punishment can you have? How do you look your family straight into the eyes? Okay. So Control C, Control V, boom. A German minister resigned because he copied his PhD thesis. The director of London School of Economics resigned because there were some malpractices during his time. Anil Bhati, a former Duke researcher, he retracts the lung cancer paper. So all these examples are there. Sometimes if it is a minor thing, you can just write an apology. But even this is not very nice, no? So how to be a good scientist? Honesty. Reporting data and procedures on an as-is basis. Objectivity. No bias or prejudice. Openness. Share data, ideas, results, tools, lab notebooks. Professional integrity and behavior. Protect the confidential communication results, mostly for industrial and defense related work. You should respect colleagues, students, subordinates. Respect for intellectual property. Be generous in giving due credit and acknowledgement. Respect the copyright and patents and the property of others. There are several tools available. Authenticate, Turnitin, DupliChecker, CopyLeaks, PaperRater, Plagiarisma, PlagScan. So all these, some of them are on the net freely available. So at least for plagiarism, you can always check. So what are the possible closures? People realize themselves. Paper is retracted or write an apology. Resign. Some people have committed suicide also. Debar is more common. You cannot apply for funding for next 10 years. You cannot take on a graduate student. What will you do? Withdraw. You withdraw yourself. Retraction of publications. If these are minor things, you can correct. So you can always ask, how does science grow in such a hostile environment? So, eventually what you see in a book, you started with so much knowledge, subjective, unreliable, nonsense, pseudoscience. At every stage, it filters out as more and more people try to repeat your experiments. And what is left in the end is reliable objective. So this is how the science grows itself. It has, ultimately you get caught, sometimes sooner or later. Okay, people have been caught even after their death. You cannot punish them, but it does bring a bad name. Okay. Einstein used to say, many people say that it is the intellect which makes a great scientist. They are wrong. It is character. And character is what you do when no one is watching. And finally, I want to conclude. You should think more. Use of models, physical and abstract, exploiting analogies, making connections, group activities, open-ended questions, synthesis, staying alert and active, reading, solving puzzles, asking questions and maintain positive attitude. Be honest in your work. And finally, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Fields are changing so quickly, so you have to let some of your old activities go, learn new techniques, and relearn even new techniques. So you really have to learn to learn on your own as and when the need arises. I think that's my last slide. So thank you very much. I'm sorry I have overstepped the time a little bit. Yep.
Thank you, sir, very much. Now I request the audience to pose any questions to sir.
Good evening, Professor.
Good evening.
It was indeed a very great lecture, Professor. We are
Thank you.
really very fortunate to hear such a great lecture, Professor. Now, you have mentioned in detail about the unethical path of doing research. Since plagiarism is not a foolproof, it can be smartly, it can be defeated. And you also spoke about self-plagiarism. And there is another thing about outsourcing technique, Professor.
Yes.
People these days, they are giving everything outsourcing, and they are completing their work. And you have nicely mentioned about what are the major ethical issues in conducting research, and what are the potential consequences of ignoring ethical principles and regulation, and what kind of research are considered unethical. All these things nicely you have mentioned, Professor. Just I want to ask one thing, Professor.
Yes, go ahead.
See, everywhere people like you, Professor Chabra, like you will not be there. I mean, you are not omnipresent. Everywhere it is not possible people like you to be there. I just want to know who is responsible for ensuring research is conducted ethically in our country, Professor.
I would say,
why do unethical process takes over, and who is responsible? Just like so many exam bodies are there conducting so many exams, why these people they bypass this, Professor?
Well, I think I would say the major responsibility lies with the researcher himself. I mean, if you are in the profession of research, why do you intend to cheat?
Yeah,
I think so. Majority is this. So, and then I think we are slowly coming around that until 10 years ago, not even many countries have a proper mechanism to deal with. Even US is grappling with this because there are all kinds of difficulties here in the sense, see, if there is that person from the Bell Labs, he had 20 collaborators. So it's just the one bad apple which can bring down the reputation of the remaining 19 people.
yes.
So it's one really has to, I would say that my best answer is that the responsibility is ours. We have to own up the actions. And when somebody digresses from it, I think the punishment should be exemplary so that the other people do not dare to repeat that, I think. So now what punishment can be, it can be left to the universities. I mean, government cannot do anything. Government cannot regulate. So I would say the responsibility is collectively all of us. I think we should teach our students properly. We should tell them that, look, everybody does not have to do research, but if you do want to do research, these are the rules of the game which we have to follow. So I think I would say bulk of the responsibility lies with us.
Thank you so much, Professor. And what are the current scenario going on about material research, Professor? Let's say now everyone talks about nanotechnology.
Well, you see,
what are the opportunities for quantum nanostructures, Professor?
Very good. I think, I mean, I'm not personally involved in it, but I have many colleagues here, so who are into quantum computing and all those things.
Quantum dots and all.
Yeah. So there is one Professor Rajesh Nair at IIT Ropar in physics. If you want, you can send him an email and ask him more directed questions. He got a Swarn Jayanti fellowship to carry out that project recently.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. You're welcome.
Any next question, please?
Sir?
Yes.
Yes.
This is Abdul Paris, sir, from Chemical Technology. Sir, I have one question, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
someone research something, but here so many issues like people stealing some other ideas and some other issues. We can do anything legally that it's our own idea.
Well, just for your information, a scientist has been jailed for 6 months in the UK just for stealing somebody else's work. So it might come to India also one day. So people are looking at, see, because this is we are using taxpayers' money. And the taxpayers have the right to know that how their money is being used or misused. And they can go to court. It's like a theft. So it was very painful for me to see that a scientist has been sent to jail for 6 months or 5 months or something. Of course, he has appealed the verdict, but the very fact that the judge has found him worth sending to jail itself is a bad news for the science. So who knows, it might happen in India also one day. And see, one should also see that everything cannot be fixed by legislation. Everything cannot be fixed by making laws. After all, we have to observe the laws. And if all our parents, our religions teach us to be honest, then doing research honestly is also part of it. Why do we need anything on ethics? If we are honest, that's all it is about.
Any other next question, please?
My second question is regarding to our nature, sir. Like our nature, sir. Like day by day, means pollution was there, and also so many protest was there. But our scientists also do so many things like purifying airs, something like that, sir. But why we are not accepting that things, sir? Like in daily use?
Well, I don't really know that. See, these kind of difficulties are there everywhere, because to introduce anything new, which requires a change or an adjustment by the public at large, intrinsically we are opposed to it, because we have inertia. We say, well, why bother? Life is going smoothly. Why should I try something new? So I think it requires a lot of persistent effort, constant hammering, repeated education. So, bringing a product unless it's a question of life and death, I think human nature is such that we are very reluctant to accept any change very easily or very quickly.
Yeah. Any other question, please? Okay, thank you, Professor Sir. We are very happy you have given us abundant concept of knowledge to us. The session was very informative. So on behalf of Level Academy, our principal, Dr. L. George Reddy SJ, I thank you for accepting our invitation and then taking this granting these hours to us, and then enlightening us on this field. Thank you very much, Professor. We wish to see you once, because you have given such an abundant quantity of knowledge. I was so fascinated. I really like to see you once in my lifetime. If time possible, definitely I'll visit and then I may meet you. I'll be very happy to see you, sir, physically. Thank you very much.
I also have many friends in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana area. So once the conditions improve, I will come. So definitely, I will definitely let you know.
Definitely, okay, sir. Just inform. We'll pick you up from the airport. We'll provide the services for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I also thank Dr. Zakir Hussain sir, who was the initiator for this entire concept. Thank you very much. Thank you, my department, who was there behind me in conducting this session as a grand success. Thank you very much, sir. Namaskar.
Okay.
Sir, Professor, can you share your slides, Professor? Can you give us your slides?
No,
This-
sir. Sir is writing a book on this. So after that, it will be released. So we are not doing anything now, please. It was informed in the beginning only.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me and goodbye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay then.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye.